Hey Eagles fans, this is Mike Kaye from NJ Advanced Media. Welcome to the No Huddle Show podcast where we discuss anything and everything Philadelphia Eagles. You can read our content on NJ.com/Eagles, bookmark that, and you can subscribe to our exclusive Eagles Insider Text service where we'll break news, give you insider observations, and provide in-depth analysis. Through Eagles Extra, you can send questions and comments directly to us and we'll respond to your phone. With me today, as always, is my fellow Eagles beat reporter, Chris Franklin. Today we're going to discuss the Eagles' Week 5 loss to the Steelers, the emergence of Travis Fulgham, and what needs to happen to turn this season around. Chris, how are you doing today?
I'm trying to still digest this agonizing loss that had happened. It just seems like it's over and over. We just see this team get within really close, and all of a sudden the rails fall off, and it just they just lose the game. We wind up losing this game. It's just rough to see, man. What were your initial thoughts of this game?
You know what? Honestly, it was one of the most fun games I've covered. As an Eagles beat reporter, this was a game that kind of showed you some fight from the Eagles. Like, they do have fight. They're clearly a less talented team than the Pittsburgh Steelers. They aren't as well coached. They make really dumb mistakes, but I thought this team showed that they had a lot of spunk left in them, and I think if you look at kind of how Carson Wentz reacted to the first interception that he threw, and then came back on the next two drives and led two touchdown drives with Travis Fulgham being the catalyst for moving the football, I think that was really compelling. I think that you look at the 74-yard run by Miles Sanders. There's a lot of negative to take away from this game, but there's also quite a bit of positive, and I think that's something we couldn't say about all the other losses in the tie against the Bengals. This is a game where you can kind of feel like maybe they're on the cusp of getting back to playing at a high-ish level. That's the way I took it. Where's your head at?
I mean, don't get me wrong. I think it's great that they did go ahead and were in this game right toward almost up to the end. But I think when you look at what we believe this team was heading into the season as a possible 9-win team, for me, it's tough to accept a moral victory like that. I mean, it's good to the fact that Doug hasn't lost a team and they've gone ahead and they still battle through this way. But when you just look at the self-inflicted penalties that we keep seeing over and over again, and you keep seeing how the weaknesses in his defense are starting to show itself up more and more, it's just frustrating to watch this time after time again. I mean, yeah, I just don't know. I don't know how they can turn this around, even in this dreck of the division called the NFC East.
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously the big news from the weekend is Dak Prescott had to have immediate surgery on his ankle after getting injured against the Giants. It's unfortunate. You never root for injuries for anyone. But clearly Andy Dalton, who helped will the Cowboys back, to a win against the Giants this afternoon, he's clearly a downgrade from Dak Prescott. There's a reason why he was the backup there. You also have to factor in that Dak Prescott was on the franchise tag, and now he's probably, if he's lost for the season, we don't want to speculate too much, but granted, he had surgery right away. He's in a bad spot heading into free agency, and maybe that means he moves on, what have you. The future is kind of up in the air for him and the Cowboys. He's definitely going to lose some negotiating leverage there, but it also kind of creates a path for the Eagles to kind of weasel their way into the NFC East crown. There hasn't been a repeat winner of the NFC East in forever, so that's a feather in the cap for the Eagles if they're able to get it, even if it's by nefarious means of going like 7-8-1. I'm not going to say, look, it wasn't a positive that Dak Prescott got injured. You never wish that on anyone, and I'm sure the Eagles would like to win the division on their own merit. But I do think the Cowboys are exponentially worse with Andy Dalton under center. I think he's the definition of an average quarterback, and Carson Wentz showed some stuff today that showed, maybe he is still in there. Maybe he is that guy still. But we'll get into that as we get into this recap show. So you know what? Let's talk about the ugly from this game. Um, Third down, Eagles down by 2. It's the fourth quarter. You know, the Steelers are in a third and long situation, and what happens? Well, Chase Claypool, the rookie who had already scored 3 touchdowns on the Eagles, gets matched up against, you guessed it, Nathan Gary. Take us through that play, Chris.
Well, what happened was that, to the credit of Ben Roethlisberger, he saw this. He saw the Eagles had run that play a couple of plays ago. They looked like they're going to be in that quarters defense, meaning that you're going to have 4 defensive backs back there, probably right around like the 5-yard line toward the end zone. Make sure nothing gets past them because it's third and long. And so Ben goes ahead and sees this and goes, wow, I have Nate Gary lined up against Charles Claypool, who, the guy I've been trying to target 10 times already and who's had a great game and had 3 touchdowns. Why not go against one-on-one with Nate Gary and see what happens? And he, to his credit, he changed the play. And next thing you know, you have Nate Gary being burnt by a wide receiver. And you know what? The thing is going to be is I don't blame Nate Gary on that one. I completely blame defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz on that because there are a number of other different things you can do. If you're worried about getting beat, you still go cover 2 and have more guys down there. B, why not go ahead and substitute a defensive back in there for Gary? They could say they're in quote unquote dollar or whatever, what have you, but a linebacker's still on the field. If you see the Steelers are going empty, there's all wide receivers, and you still have a linebacker there, Ben Roethlisberger is not going to go ahead and he's not the Ben Roethlisberger of old. He's not going to burn you with his legs. So the fact that you had Gary in there, one-on-one to the wide receiver, I mean, take the timeout. I mean, you had all 3 timeouts at the time. Why not just take the timeout? If you saw something you didn't like, I know you were behind, but you figure you had a 2-minute warning and you would have had to burn the timeout. You would still would have had a 2-minute warning and 2 other timeouts. And if you have faith in your defense, just go ahead and burn one to go make sure you don't get burnt. And what happened? They got burnt, 35-yard touchdown. And that was pretty much the game in itself. I mean, I just don't understand what they were thinking. I mean, do you feel like it was Gary's fault? Do you feel like it was Schwartz's fault at all with this?
I mean, I think it's not Gary's fault that he's on the field or matched up in that way, but I do think Nate Gary is just not good enough. We've said it for weeks. It's almost like we're banging our heads against the wall here. What does he what does he bring to this defense? I kind of don't get it. And then, Schwartz, he's routinely said that he needs to put his players in the best position to make plays. I don't know how matching Claypool up against a linebacker who clearly struggles in coverage, even though he's considered a quote unquote coverage linebacker, is the right move. But then again, you don't really have any other linebackers. You're going to put Davian Taylor out there. You're going to put Sean Bradley, who's got very little experience. Alex Singleton got caught, turned around on a big reception by Eric Ebron, who caught it while he was on the ground. Like, this linebacker group's a joke, and it's just like you can't, there's no other options, I guess. I mean, Duke Riley forced a fumble basically on accident. I mean, he made a really poor tackling attempt and knocked the ball loose. Look, this group is just not good, and they're going to continue to suffer on defense as long as that's the weak link. We've talked about it several times. The pass rush wasn't really there. The offensive line of the Steelers did a very good job of kind of limiting the amount of opportunities the pass rush had in the backfield. We saw some kind of dumb plays by the defense creating penalties. The secondary wasn't great, but then to make matters worse, Darius Slay got injured. We never really got an update on him, but he didn't return to the game, and Craig James had to go back out there. Overall, I thought the defense played whatever. I thought they had a good first half, and then the wheels fell off. Are you kind of with me on that one?
I am. I think the biggest thing besides that call that defensive call that Schwartz put on toward the end of that fourth quarter is getting entirely frustrating seeing these defensive ends giving up contain over and over again and seeing these end arounds keep continuing to happen. I mean, it happened again. I mean, and they keep saying they harp on it. They coach the guys up. I mean, you have to think as a defensive end, if you see somebody trying to cross your face, or all of a sudden you have a tackle, just all of a sudden, hey, you know what? I'm not going to go hit you. You have to think it's either a screen or something weird's on its way back. And you've seen it happen again. I mean, Graham almost got beat on another end around. I mean, they gave up that big play earlier in the game, but Graham almost got beat for another long game with a wide receiver running around again. It's the same thing we saw against the Rams. You've seen the Bengals ran it again, and you're tired of hearing it over and over. The Eagles defenders saying, "Well, they put a different wrinkle on it, but it still happens. We have to do a better job." At what point do you start having to look at and say, "Hey, you know what? A better job's not good enough," and it's just getting the defensive line. The other thing I have a gripe I had against about them was they didn't put their hands up, I think, enough when they weren't getting to that rush, because Roethlisberger was getting that ball out quickly, and to see that he was to see if you weren't getting the rush there to begin with, just put your hands up to try to affect the pass in the lanes. I mean, the Steelers did it with Wentz when they couldn't get to it; they tipped a lot of balls that way. But I just don't know what's going on with that defensive line right now. They've been getting a good pass rush, but everything else today, they didn't show it today, and it's been rough.
Yeah, I mean, I think then you turn to the offensive side of the ball. Look, Zach Ertz has just not been involved. He hasn't over the past 2 weeks. But like, I just don't. I don't really know what the disconnect is. Carson Wentz is not throwing him catchable passes. He seems to be kind of lethargic out there. Like, there's a disconnect here. And that's weird because they have been such a dynamic duo, and right now they're anything but dynamic. And I think that hurt them in this game. I also think, moving away from the running game probably didn't help them either. Miles Sanders had 11 carries for 80 yards. Yeah, 10 of those carries went for 6 yards, but he also had that 74-yard touchdown run, which was spectacular in the first quarter. Again, Miles Sanders doesn't really have any support. Boston Scott ran the ball once for 3 yards. Like, they're not doing a very good job of getting other guys involved. Corey Clement had a really rough moment in pass protection during this game. I thought the offensive line was pretty blah, but then again, this is also a really good defensive front.
Yeah, I mean, they gave up five different sacks. I mean, Wentz got sacked 5 times, and you have to look at the fact that that these two of them were coverage sacks. I mean, the wide receivers couldn't get enough separation early on, and 3 of them were on Wentz. I mean, were on Wentz. I apologize for against the offensive line. Lane Johnson left again, and I'm sorry, I think there's 3 straight games now that he's left.
Yep, he's pulled the JP. Ankle. Yeah,
it's bad. You fix one side, you think you got it rectified, and now all of a sudden you have your other Pro Bowl tackle getting hurt. I mean, at what point do you? Is this depth is really being tested? You can't lose Johnson again. I mean, Driscoll stepped in okay. I wouldn't say he lit the world fire. I think Mailata didn't light the world fire. He handled his own for a little bit until Dupree just blasted him in the fourth quarter. I mean, and then when we talk about the receivers earlier, I mean, besides Fulgham, everybody else was ho-hum. I mean, I want to ask you this because I'm still struggling to get this. How do you rectify this thing between Wentz and Ertz, because it is struggling right now? Your go-to tight end, used to be your number one option, now it's struggling.
Well, I mean, look, he's being bracketed, he's being double covered. It just seems like they're not on the same page, and frankly, if they don't get on the same page, they're not winning anything. We've seen this back-to-back games where Carson's just kind of hitting him like high. He's throwing, the timing throws just seem to be off, and Ertz is very dependent on timing routes. It just kind of seems like that interception today, it seemed like there was a bit of a miscommunication, but also, Ertz got knocked off his route and couldn't reroute. I mean, it's a tough situation. I can't put my finger on it. There's so much to talk about with that, which if you're listening to this on Tuesday or on Monday, excuse me, you'll already know that I've already written about it. But so look, while we're on offense, we've got to talk about some positives. I thought this was Carson Wentz's best performance of the season. I know he had 2 interceptions in this game, but I just think he looked very composed in the pocket. He showed a lot of poise. He made some really spectacular throws. His best throw of the game actually didn't even really matter. He connected with J. Whiteside on a 37-yard bomb to end the half. Which was Arcega-Whiteside's first catch of the season. Apparently, he can only make catches that don't matter. But look, we got to talk about the emergence of Travis Fulgham because this is not a fluke. He is a legit guy. I was laughing in the press box every time he caught a ball. Like, he was getting open regularly and against Joe Hayden of all people. So, like, look, this dude's a dude. And, this Eagles team has been looking for a young go-to wide receiver for 5 years. And the last time a guy caught 10 passes for 152 or 150 yards and a touchdown, had a stat line like that, Carson Wentz wasn't in the league yet at wide receiver. So Zach Ertz has had that stat line several times, but outside of that dude, you're not, Alshon Jeffrey had a 10 catch game last year, but it was for 76 yards. So, I mean, look, Fulgham's a guy who, if he's got all the measurables, he's a guy who clearly is hungry here. They got to keep playing him. He's their X receiver right now. I don't care if Alshon Jeffrey or Deshaun Jackson's ready to come back. Keep Fulgham on the field. He is a guy that you want to prove is an asset moving forward over the next 11 games. I'm all for not bringing Alshon back.
Wow.
I'm trying to give you something to debate here. Come on, bring it.
I'm bringing to you, and I'm sitting there thinking, like, you have to bring Alshon back, man. Like, you can't just go ahead and go, nah, he can't do this for you. You need, as much as Wentz doesn't like to go ahead and throw into tight windows at times, you need a guy who can go ahead and have a catch radius like a Alshon does. And I just don't see how you can say, like, hey, you know what? Yeah, Alshon, we don't need a guy like that for it, but let's go ahead and keep throwing Arcega-Whiteside out there.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying what I'm saying is like, you need Fulgham on the field as much as is humanly possible. Your goal at wide receiver is to figure out if he and Jalen Reagor are the dudes moving forward. Because frankly, look, this is a team that doesn't have a lot of young assets and that can be here long term. They're just not. They have a lot of young players, but not a lot of guys that are proven to be long term contributors. And if Fulgham's going to perform like this and play this well against a really good defense, you've got to really give him a long study. And I just kind of think, like, a lot of people made a big deal out of Greg Ward. He's been fine. What Fulgham did today is kind of, starter level stuff. Like, this isn't just a breakout game. This is like a legit, like, coming out party. And I think, they've been hurting for that. They've been hurting for development. And so to have this guy do what he's done over the last 2 weeks is a very encouraging sign. And it's like finding $1 or $5 in the couch cushions. Like, this is a huge deal. I'm not trying to, like, oversell this, but if you need Alshon Jeffrey in certain packages, terrific. I mean, you're going to have to ease him back anyway. I think over the next month, until at least the bye week, you need to have Fulgham front and center. You can use Deshaun on the outside. That's fine, whatever. But, like, I just don't see how you play guys like Quez Watkins or John Hightower, who I thought really kind of showed his lack of experience in this game. Like, he turned into a pumpkin a little bit here. His situational awareness was not great. He basically cost them a timeout on that failed end of first half drive because he couldn't get out of bounds. And then he dropped 2 deep passes, including a potential touchdown, and kind of slowed down to kind of try to track the ball a few times, and it really didn't work in his favor. I mean, he was targeted 6 times. I feel like the 4 times he didn't catch the ball were all downfield strikes. So he's getting open. He just didn't kind of know where he was on the field. What else did you take away from the offense?
Well, before I get into that one too, I'm going to counter something you said. Don't you think it's important to go ahead and see what you have in Watkins and in Hightower in these pressure situations, and not just focus mainly on Fulgham? because I think you spent all this draft capital on bringing guys in like this and you think you have the main thing you want to go is user speed, and you see what they have in there. You want to know what you have because you don't have a lot of these a lot of resources coming up in the next couple of years because of the salary cap issue. Don't you think it's important to go ahead and check to see a guy like Quez Watkins and Hightower what they can do, especially down the stretch? Because the games are going, especially the way this division is. The games are going to be tighter. They're going to be big, have a lot on the line when it comes to stuff. I think. Don't you think it's time? Do you want to see what they have the ability to do when it comes to those pressure situations?
Sure, but they're also rookies. They're also guys that haven't performed in regular situations. My thing too is like, if you're going to play Jack, that's furthers my point. If you're going to play Jackson and Alshon, those are basically empty snaps. If they're not going to be here next year and you're barely contending in a terrible division, you've got to keep your eye on the prize. You've got to keep your eyes on long term. And I think playing the kids is the right move, whether that's Fulgham or Ward or Watkins or whatever. There's 3 wide receiver spots on the field. You can move guys around, but I just think what you saw from Fulgham today is really, really enticing, and it's something that they should kind of recheck and recheck and recheck. It's like when I go to the store and I buy that hint water, HINT, and it's like I've got to, like, I like one flavor, I got to go back and try another, and then if I don't like that flavor, I got to go back and be like, hey, did I just like this one flavor? So I've got to try them again. I got to try them all. You know what I mean? It's like you got to know what.
I think we
Propel
really
only had.
disagree on something. Wow, I think we really disagree on something. This is
Listen,
crazy.
Propel Fitness Water, I think only has like 4 or 5 flavors. I really like flavored water, and so like I had to try Hint. It was pretty good, like with one of the flavors, then the other flavor. What? Anyway, I like the blackberry one. So if you're a big flavored water fan, blackberry. That's the way to go. Anyway, my wife doesn't like it though, so I don't, whatever. We disagree on that. We could do a whole podcast on that. Anyway, so Jake Elliott misses a 57-yard field goal today. It was wide right. It had the distance. He's been pretty dependable this season, and he was dependable last season. I'm not going to fault him for missing a 57-yard kick. That's a really difficult kick.
I see. I do a little in ways because he's the guy that he's the guy that you look for. You rely on. You rely on. And it's a difficult kick, yeah. But why did you give him the extension if you didn't think he was going to make difficult kicks? And especially
That's fair.
when you have this team that really needs a good thing to happen for him, and he pushes it like that. I mean, the snap was good. Lovato's snap was good. Good hold by Johnston, and you push it like that and it wasn't like there was that much wind. I mean, I looked at the weather reports, like, was it 4 miles per hour max? That much wind, you push it. You expect a guy like that, a former Pro Bowl kicker, I might add to you, to go ahead and make something like that. And it's a microcosm of all those little things. I mean, you have veterans not doing their job, making mental mistakes. You got a veteran kicker now, consider a veteran kicker pushing a field goal when you really need him to do that. And I mean, we were arguing about if he should come in for a 61 to try it as well too, because we knew he had the leg for it. So when you see stuff like that, he has to make stuff like that in order for his team to be successful. And when you don't, that's when we get to be 1-3-1. I think he has to make a kick like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only bright spot on this team who's consistent is Cam Johnston. When you look at his 51.4 yard punt average, which is crazy, it's second best in the league. But yeah, I mean, look, again, a lot to dislike in this game, a lot to like in this game. We saw Jalen Hurts throw his first pass, connected with Richard Rodgers for an 18-yard strike. I think I predicted in my predictions a couple of weeks back that he was going to hit Richard Rodgers with his first pass. So I'm pretty thrilled about that. I was feeling good. I had a prediction that Miles Sanders was going to be like the first guy to run for 100 yards on the Steelers in like several years at home. And, they abandoned the run after he ran for 74 yards. I did say that Carson Wentz was going to be sacked at least 5 times, so I got that one right. Look, so moving forward, let's spin this forward. What needs to change in order for this team to kind of right their wrongs, right the ship, and go on a run and go maybe 7-8-1 or 8-7-1, and win this division, because really that's their peak. I just, I think Carson Wentz gave you a lot to feel encouraged about. Same with Miles Sanders. Obviously, Travis Fulgham is a guy that we're going to keep an eye on. But like, what really needs to change here, Chris?
They need to go ahead and stop the unforced and mental mistakes and the unforced errors. I mean, go back to Cincinnati, Matt Pryor with the false start. Go back to the offsides with Fletcher Cox today. Go back to the uncalled for personal foul and the sportsmanlike conduct, the sportsmanlike on Malik Jackson. There are so many times you look back at this team when it looks like they have a good thing going and they shoot themselves in the foot. They have to go ahead and stop these mental errors. And they keep saying, "Oh, well, we're going to fix it." I mean, what's it going to take? This is where you come to your coaching staff or your leaders to go ahead and actually enforce it. And it doesn't help when one of your leaders picks up a face mask penalty late in the game. It sound like he didn't agree with that penalty, but it has to be one of those things where he goes ahead and somebody has to go ahead and step up and say something, whether it be a veteran or a coach, and enforce it. I don't think anybody's going to be benched. I don't think anybody's going to be benched for stuff like that for it, but there has to be something done in order to hammer this point home, because if not, it's going, how many close games are we going to see this season where we go, you're expecting now for the Eagles to do something stupid like, oh, here comes a false start, or oh, here comes a pass interference where you didn't really have to put your hand on the hand around the hip of the wide receiver. It's so many unforced errors that it's the mark of a bad team, and they are a bad team right now when it comes to everything else like this. I mean, how do you fix all this? There's so many things. How would you fix this?
Well, I mean, look, I think the play calling today was a lot better from Doug Peterson, and that was encouraging. Look, I think this. I've said this all season. This team needs to become a run first offense. They need to be able to get this offensive line going early. They can't move away from it. It appears like that's not what the definition of this team's going to be. So I don't know how much better it can get. I don't think this is a talented team at all. I don't think they're very good. They're banged up. I mean, I think that's part of the reason why I think you got to play the kids at wide receiver and tight end, and really just kind of get the most juice out of the squeeze from the young guys, because eventually you're going to have to sell off assets. I wrote this a couple of weeks ago. Eventually you're going to have to consider trading Zach Ertz. You're going to have to consider trading Fletcher Cox. You're going to have to make moves with the 2021 and 2022 seasons in mind, because a general manager's job is to look towards the future, and right now they are not being coached or producing to show that they deserve to make the playoffs. And if they were to make the playoffs, how confident would you be that they could actually win anything? So it's just like, yeah, of course you want to make the playoffs every year, but is it worth it for a one and done situation? Is it worth hanging on to a couple of salaries or losing value on a trade just to be one and done in the playoffs? And I know that's not the way teams should kind of look at things, but frankly, they're in a situation where they're just not a good squad, and I don't know how things get better.
I'm not at the point where you can go ahead and. I don't think you're going to trade, because also what are you going to get back? I mean, when it comes to a tight end, okay, maybe you'll get something for Ertz, but
I think
he's
you can get
playing
it too
poorly.
for
Who's going
Zach.
to want to bring him?
Right. Well, I mean, I think when you look at it, if you're a good team and you feel like you're one, like this, like the Seahawks are the perfect example. Like the Seahawks could use another tight end. Greg Olson's only there a 1 year rental. Ertz is a West Coast guy. I think the idea of having a 2 tight end set for Russell Wilson would be terrific. I think that's a team that you look at and you say, that makes sense. I think you look at a team like the Dolphins. I think you look at a team like the Colts. Like there are teams out there who can win games and put themselves in position with a guy like Zach Ertz who has dependable hands. I mean, right now, yeah, sure, Zach's not playing well, especially on paper, but Carson Wentz is a large part of that disconnect as well. And I think when we break down the film later on this week, we're going to see that this is not solely on Zach Ertz.
And I want to. Here's the second thing I have. So you say you get, I don't know, a fourth for Zach Ertz, a fifth for Zach Ertz.
You're not going to trade Zach Ertz for less than a second. You're just not. I wouldn't.
You think somebody's going to go ahead and give a second the way he's playing?
Yeah,
right now,
Doug Whaley told me he thought that you could get maybe a late first for him. Yeah, I think a late second for Zach Ertz. Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think you're in a spot right here where, look, you'd be surprised. I mean, look, I didn't think that you never know what guys are going to get traded for in this league, especially when you get desperate. You look at the way the Vikings use draft picks. There are teams out there that use draft picks in a way that is kind of stupid. So, it's one of those situations where you see what you can get. Like Fletcher Cox is interesting to me too, because I wouldn't trade him for less than a second round pick. Like, you've got to shop these guys. I'm not saying you have to trade them, but you got to see what's out there at some point.
But don't you think that if you're gonna, in order to go ahead and shop the picks, don't you have to have confidence in your scouting department to actually make the right picks in the next couple drafts to go ahead and do this? And with the
Well, you
track
need
record
Well,
they
but
have,
here's the thing. Here's the thing, though. You've got to get rid of all that salary anyway, so you can get under the cap. So one way or another, they are cutting guys or they are trading guys. You might as well trade the guys that have actual value. I think a guy like Malik Jackson, maybe you can get a fifth or a sixth for. Like there's opportunities to not only free up money for next year, but you're getting value. And I don't think Howie Roseman's sitting there to himself, man, our scouting department sucks. I shouldn't trade any of these players. Like, I don't think that that's a thing. I mean, I think you inherently have to feel like you have some sort of, venom or juice in your scouting department to quote unquote hire said scouting department. So, I like this debate. It's a nice change of pace for us. But do you have any final words, Chris?
they took all the words out of my mouth right now. I'm just it's almost become conditioned to go ahead and expect basically come conditioned to see the way this team plays, because conditioned to see another loss. And you got the Ravens coming up this week, and we're going to talk about that a lot on the upcoming podcast on Thursday. But yeah, I'm wholeheartedly expecting to go ahead and have another conversation like this about you next week as well too. So yeah, I'm ready for that.
Yeah, I mean, look, this Ravens team is going to come into Philadelphia, and they are going to fly. So it's going to be an interesting one. I'm not really sure that they can do. I don't think they can contain Lamar Jackson. So we'll head into the week with that thought. But for Chris, I'm Mike. Thanks for tuning into our post game show. You can download Eagles Extra, or you can sign up for Eagles Extra, excuse me, at NJ.com/text. You can download the No Huddle Show podcast wherever podcasts are available. We'll be back on Wednesday, or Thursday, excuse me. Man, it's been a long day out here in Pittsburgh. We will see you soon.